on that cold, dark night, as heavy rain lashed against broken windows and the bitter wind howled down empty streets. Something in the air felt wrong and raw. In a narrow alley lit only by a flickering street lamp, a man known for his ruthless deals and frozen heart found himself caught in an unexpected moment. There, amidst puddles and shadows, he saw a woman whose eyes held pain and quiet hope. Her ragged clothes and weary smile spoke of a hard life, yet there was a deep kindness shining in them that he had never seen before. In that unsettling moment, as thunder rolled in the distance, his carefully built world began to crumble. Daniel, a billionaire with a reputation for a heart of stone, had spent years building a fortune with no regard for feelings or the struggles of others. Business calls and boardroom battles filled his days, and nights were spent in empty, luxurious hotel rooms. He had learned long ago that emotions were a weakness, and he guarded his heart behind thick walls. But on this stormy night, fate led him to Lily, a homeless woman whose life had been a far cry from the wealth and comfort he knew. Daniel had left one of his many high-rise offices after a long day of meetings. His mind was busy calculating numbers and planning his next venture when he took a shortcut through a side street. The rain was unrelenting, and he was lost in thought about profit margins and market shares. That was when he heard soft footsteps and a muffled cry. Curious, he followed the sound and came upon the small figure of Lily, huddled under a worn blanket near a dumpster. Her eyes met his, and in them he saw a story of loss and survival. Without a word, something stirred inside him, a rare mix of pity, concern, and a spark of something he had long forgotten. He knelt beside her, offering his hand. Lily, surprised and hesitant, accepted the gesture. For the rest of that stormy night, sheltered from the cold in an abandoned building, they talked. Their conversation was simple and raw. Lily told him about her past, her lost family, and the hard days on the streets. Daniel listened, and for the first time in years, he felt something like real connection. That night, in a moment of vulnerability and unplanned passion, they shared more than words. When morning light began to push back the shadows, Daniel woke with an ache he could not explain. In the soft glow of dawn, he saw Lily sleeping peacefully beside him. The luxurious world he was used to now felt empty compared to the warmth of her presence. In that instant, he knew he could not let her slip away. With a trembling voice, he begged her not to leave. "Stay with me," he pleaded, the words tumbling out as if his heart depended on them. "I cannot go on without you." Before that night, Daniel's life was as pristine and controlled as the marble floors of his penthouse. He had built a vast business empire from nothing, conquering industries and earning respect in boardrooms with his sharp mind and even sharper tongue. Yet, behind the glimmering wealth lay a loneliness so deep it was almost invisible. His friends were few and shallow, his love life non-existent, and he had long ago learned to ignore the pangs of a heart that needed warmth. Every day, his life was a cycle of meetings, contracts, and more meetings. His only true companion was the sound of clacking keyboards and ringing phones. Emotions were an afterthought, something to be controlled or hidden. He had grown accustomed to thinking that love was a luxury he could never afford. But that single night with Lily challenged everything he believed about himself and the world he had built. Lily's life was a stark contrast to Daniel's world of wealth and order. She had grown up in a small town, known by everyone for her gentle smile and kind heart. Life, however, had not been easy for her. Losses and disappointments had led her down a difficult path. After a series of unfortunate events, a lost job, the death of a loved one, and a string of bad luck, Lily found herself with nowhere to go. The bustling city streets became her reluctant home. Despite the hardship, Lily never lost hope. She still believed in the simple joys of life, a warm meal, a kind word, and the beauty of a sunrise. Even on the coldest nights, her eyes held a spark that defied her circumstances. It was that spark that Daniel saw on that rainy night. In her, he found a light that was absent from his life for far too long. After that fateful night, Daniel's mind was filled with thoughts of Lily. The next few days passed in a blur of restless nights and a growing determination to find her again. He searched the streets where they had met, questioned the local shopkeepers, and even used his influence to check on shelters. Yet, Lily was nowhere to be found. The cold reality of his world began to creep back in, and for the first time, he felt a true fear. The fear of losing the one person who had brought light into his life. He remembered every detail of her face, the softness of her voice, and the way she looked at him, as if he were a mystery yet to be solved. Every moment with her had been simple and honest, a stark contrast to the false smiles and calculated gestures he was used to in his business meetings. The memory of that night fueled his search, and soon his days were consumed with thoughts of Lily. Daniel began to change. The man who once found solace in cold numbers and empty boardrooms now found himself lost in daydreams of a life that felt real. He started to see the value in simple gestures, a shared meal, a kind word, a quiet walk in the park. His heart, which had long been sealed off, started to crack open. Friends and colleagues noticed a change in him. His stern face softened, and he seemed more approachable. Though many could not understand this shift, for Daniel, it was a sign of hope. Days turned into weeks, and Daniel's search for Lily became an obsession. He hired help, pored over local records, and visited every shelter and soup kitchen he could find. All the while, his heart fought a battle between his old ways and the new feelings that Lily had awakened in him. He began to feel guilt over his past actions, the cold decisions made in the name of business, and the many hearts he had left unfulfilled in his rise to power. At night, when the city was quiet and his mind was left alone with his thoughts, he would replay that night again and again. He remembered the way Lily had smiled despite the hardships written on her face, how she had looked at him as if she saw through all the wealth and power into the real person inside. He recalled the tender moments, the gentle touches, and the shared warmth in the cold darkness. The more he remembered, the more he realized that his life had been empty before she came along. Despite the challenges, Daniel refused to turn back. Each time he thought of giving in to the pressure, he remembered the gentle voice of Lily urging him forward. "We have come too far to let fear take over," she would say. Together, they began to work on a plan, not just to protect Daniel's business, but to change the way it was run. Daniel started to invest in small community projects and charities, using his wealth to help those who, like Lily, had faced hardship. It was a slow process, but with each small success, he began to see that his transformation was not only possible, but also necessary. There were moments of deep sorrow, too. One rainy evening, as dark clouds gathered once again over the city, Daniel received news that one of his closest business partners had betrayed him, aligning with his rival in a bid for power. The betrayal cut deep, and for a moment, it threatened to undo all the progress he had made. He felt the old anger and bitterness rising up inside him. In that dark hour, he almost lost sight of the promise he had made to himself and to Lily. But then he thought of the night he had found Lily, of the warmth in her eyes that had melted the ice in his heart. He realized that he had two choices: to give in to the past or to forge a new future. With trembling determination, Daniel chose the latter. He reached out to those he had helped, rallied the support of community leaders, and fought back against the forces that sought to drag him back to his old life. It was a battle that tested his resolve, and every victory came with the knowledge that he was not just fighting for his empire, but for a love that had given his life meaning. As summer arrived, the city began to change with it. The long, dark days of winter gave way to warm evenings and bright mornings. Daniel's efforts to transform his business started to pay off. The community began to see him not as the cold billionaire he once was, but as a man who cared for the well-being of others. Lily, always by his side, became a symbol of hope for many. Her own story of struggle and survival resonated with people who had long been forgotten by the system. Yet, even in this new light, the shadow of the mysterious letter and the threat of his rival never fully disappeared. The suspense of that threat lingered in every whispered conversation, in every anxious look over Daniel's shoulder. It was as if the past was always just one misstep away from crashing down upon his new life. Despite the ongoing danger, Daniel remained steadfast in his love for Lily. He began to see that true strength came not from avoiding pain, but from facing it head-on with the support of those who truly cared. One day, as Daniel was leaving a charity event he had organized, a stranger approached him. The man's eyes were cold and hard, and he held a folded piece of paper in his hand. "You have changed too much, Mr. Daniel," the stranger said in a low voice. "There's a price to be paid for breaking your old ways." The words sent a chill down Daniel's spine, and for a moment, he wondered if he had made a mistake. But before the stranger could say more, he turned and disappeared into the crowd. Daniel clutched the paper tightly, the warning once again weighing on him. One evening, several months later, when the city was cloaked in a thick fog and the night was unusually silent, Daniel and Lily found themselves alone in the small apartment they now shared. The tension that had been building all along reached a fever pitch. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest as he paced the room, the mysterious warnings and the threat of his rival echoing in his mind. Lily sat on the worn sofa, her eyes full of concern. "Daniel, I can see that you are afraid. Tell me what is on your mind," she said softly. Her voice was calm and steady, a beacon in the storm of his thoughts. He stopped pacing and sat down beside her. "I feel like our past is coming back to haunt us," he admitted. "I keep getting warnings, and I worry that my old life will tear us apart." Lily took his hand and looked into his eyes with a steady gaze. "We cannot change the past, Daniel, but we can decide how we move forward. I trust you, and I believe in the love that we share. No matter what happens, we will face it together." Her words, simple and sincere, filled him with a new kind of strength. That night, as the fog thickened outside and the city slept under the weight of uncertainty, Daniel made a decision. He would confront the threat head-on. He called the police, reported the strange encounters, and even reached out to old friends in the business world who he trusted. He would not let fear dictate the future he was building with Lily. Every step he took was driven by the memory of that stormy night when he first met her, the night when her eyes, full of both sorrow and hope, broke through the armor he had built around his heart. In the days that followed, the tension slowly eased. The police investigation did not reveal any clear evidence of foul play, and Daniel's rival was forced to back down in the face of overwhelming public support for the changes Daniel was making. Yet, the mystery of the warnings continued to hover in the background like a dark cloud that refused to dissipate completely. Every phone call, every shadow in the window, reminded Daniel that there were still forces at work that sought to undo the progress he had fought so hard to achieve. One warm evening, as the city celebrated a local festival with bright lights and joyful music, Daniel and Lily walked hand in hand through the busy streets. The festive mood was contagious, and for a moment, the worries of the past seemed far away. Daniel felt a deep sense of peace and gratitude. He knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he had found something worth fighting for, a love that was real and a future that was full of promise. Then, just as the night was drawing to a close and the celebrations began to wind down, Daniel received one final message. It was a short note slipped under the door of their small apartment. With shaky fingers, he unfolded the paper and read the message. "Your heart has changed, and so has your fate. Trust and love, and you will find the path forward." There was no signature, no hint of who had sent it. The message was both a warning and a promise, a final test of his resolve. Daniel felt the familiar knot of anxiety tighten in his chest. For a long moment, he stared at the note, trying to understand its meaning. Was this the final threat, or was it a sign that he was finally free from his old life? He looked over at Lily, who was quietly watching him from the doorway. Her eyes were calm, filled with quiet determination and love. In that moment, Daniel knew what he had to do. With all the courage he had gathered in the past months, he took a deep breath and said, "Lily, no matter what comes, I promise to stand by you. I have learned that a heart that is open to love is stronger than any threat or fear. I will face the darkness if it means keeping our light alive." Lily stepped forward and placed a gentle kiss on his cheek. "Then we will do it together," she whispered. "I believe that our love is stronger than any warning, any threat from the past." In the weeks that followed, the tension finally began to fade. The mysterious warnings turned into nothing more than distant echoes of a past that no longer held power over Daniel. His business rival eventually faded from the spotlight, and Daniel's transformation became a beacon of hope for many in the community. He continued to work on making his empire a force for good, one that lifted up those in need rather than crushing them under the weight of greed. Lily, too, found a new path in life. With Daniel's support, she was able to attend classes and learn new skills. She became a voice for those who had been ignored for too long, and her gentle spirit inspired many to believe in the power of second chances. Their days were filled with small acts of kindness, a shared meal in the kitchen, a walk in the park, a quiet evening at home talking about dreams and plans for the future. Every moment was a step toward healing, a testament to the power of love to change even the hardest of hearts. One bright morning, as the city awoke to the sound of birds and the soft glow of the sun, Daniel and Lily sat on the small balcony of their modest home. They held hands, their fingers intertwined, and watched as the world around them stirred with new life. Daniel spoke softly. "I used to believe that wealth and power were all that mattered. But you have taught me that love, kindness, and hope are far more valuable." Lily smiled and rested her head on his shoulder. "We all have a choice, Daniel. I chose to see the good in you when no one else did. And together, we have built something beautiful." As the seasons changed and the years passed, the memory of that cold, dark night became a distant echo, a reminder of how far they had come. The love that began in the midst of chaos and uncertainty had grown into a deep, unbreakable bond. Daniel's heart, once sealed off in ice, now beat with the warmth of compassion and joy. And Lily, who had known only hardship and loneliness for so long, found in him a partner who valued her for who she was. Their story was not without challenges, but each obstacle only served to make their love stronger. They learned to trust one another, to forgive the past, and to look forward with hope. The warnings and threats that had once haunted Daniel's nights faded into mere memories, replaced by the steady rhythm of two hearts beating as one. In time, Daniel and Lily built a life that was simple yet full of meaning. Their home became a place of comfort and warmth, a safe haven from a world that often seemed too harsh and uncaring. They spent their days giving back to the community, helping those who were struggling, and sharing the lesson that love could truly change a life. Friends and even former enemies began to see that a change of heart was possible, even for a man who had once seemed as cold as stone. And so, in the quiet glow of a peaceful evening, as they sat together watching the sunset paint the sky with gentle hues, Daniel squeezed Lily's hand and said, "I once thought I had everything I ever wanted, yet I was empty. But you, with your simple hope and kind spirit, filled that emptiness with love and purpose." Lily looked up at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears of joy. "I never thought I would find love in a place like this," she replied softly. "But you showed me that even the coldest hearts can be warmed by kindness." The years that followed were filled with moments of quiet happiness and shared laughter. Their love became a legend in the city, a story of a man who dared to change and a woman who believed in the goodness of people. In every corner of the community, people remembered how Daniel, the billionaire with a heart of stone, had been transformed by a single night of unexpected passion and the gentle strength of a homeless woman who refused to be forgotten. At long last, the suspense of that uncertain night was replaced by a future filled with hope and promise. The mysterious warnings and threats became nothing more than a reminder of the darkness that once loomed over them, a darkness that was finally banished by the light of true love. In a world that often seemed divided by wealth and loss, Daniel and Lily found that the simplest truth was the most powerful. Love can change everything. Their story ended not with the finality of a tragic tale, but with the soft promise of a new beginning every day, a happy ending that was written in the small moments of kindness, the shared dreams, and the unyielding belief that every heart, no matter how hardened, can be mended by love. And so, as the city settled into a gentle calm and the stars shone brightly overhead, Daniel and Lily continued their journey together, hand in hand, ready to face whatever the future might bring. For they knew that true love was worth every risk, every sleepless night, and every moment of uncertainty. Their love had triumphed over fear and doubt, proving that even the coldest heart can learn to beat with warmth and hope. Hey everyone, thank you so much for being here and supporting what I do. Your comments and feedback mean the world to me. If you enjoyed this, please take a moment to leave a comment and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future updates. I love hearing from you, and your support helps keep this community growing. Thanks again, and let's keep the conversation going.